John, I love your LinkedIn says that it all began with a Commodore 64, which is, oh my God, you're music to my ears. You're really speaking my language here. Welcome, John.
Thanks, Anna. It's great to be here.
So why don't we just jump right in? John and I have had the pleasure of being on panels together over the course of the years, and one of our passions has always been lifting and rising women up in the tech industry. So, as a male leader in the tech industry, why do you think it's important to support and mentor women in technology? Like, what
Mhm.
strategies or initiatives have you implemented in your organization, either here at Chief or in previous organizations, to kind of help have that gender diversity?
Yeah, I mean, for me, the why is actually two things. So, first is a personal reason. I'm an only child, and I was raised by my mom. And I was raised at a time when, I grew up in the suburbs of Chicago, and pretty much all of my friends had a mom and dad at home, and mom stayed home, and dad went to work. And my reality is very different. From the time I was 4 years old, my mom managed restaurants, and she was the breadwinner, and she was the decision maker at home, and she was a leader. She was a business leader and a leader in the restaurant. And I worked for her for a while, which is really hard because she was very, very tough on me. But I grew up with a very different perspective on gender roles, and really just the notion that there weren't limitations on what women could do and could be. And I carried that with me into my career. And getting into tech, particularly when I got into tech in the '90s, it was still a very male dominated industry. Universities were churning out men from computer science programs, largely men from computer science programs. Leadership, all of my early bosses were all men. And so it just felt fundamentally unfair to me and unequal. And that's part of the reason, like it's just the way that I was raised. But I think the other is also a direct business health of the company and the team reason, which is it's kind of, if you take a step back and you say to yourself, well, we want to create the best products that we can for our customers, whomever they are. And to do that, we need really talented people. But the first thing we're going to do is not talk to half the population to find those talented people. And I think that's that's at the root of it from a business standpoint. Is we want we want everyone to have opportunity. We want to bring women as well as men into computer science, into technology careers, into technology leadership, because we'll get the best talent. And we know from studies that diverse teams are so much better at problem solving. They are so much more effective at producing great things. And financially, from just a P&L standpoint, companies that have more diverse leadership, that have more diverse teams, run circles around teams that don't. And so those are all the reasons that that is very important to me, and that I'm deeply invested in it. In terms of strategies, we can talk in more detail about some of these. But you and I have been in panel discussions, and we've been in rooms where we've talked about, is this a pipeline problem? Is this a support system problem once women are in technology roles? And the answer is it's both. And if you go, it has certainly changed in my time in tech. But even today, if you go into high schools, which I do here locally in Chicago, there's a great magnet school called Chi-Tech Academy, which is focused on STEM education here. Go to universities as part of intern recruiting. You still see this kind of divide where there are fewer women. And as time goes on, this is true in universities, as time goes on, freshman classes tend to be more diverse than senior classes when it comes to STEM degrees and STEM education. And so we still have this kind of built-in bias, this kind of institutional friction for having women in STEM careers. It's changing, but it does still exist to some degree. And then when women are in the workforce, women still face challenges that are unique. One of the things that we talk about at Chief is that it is lonely to be a woman in leadership, because you are still usually one of the few, if not the only woman in executive leadership in your company. There are potentially many other women who are in the same kinds of roles you're in. And then women still societally, certainly in the US, still face the burden, more of the burden of family care. So whether that's caring for children, whether that's caring for elderly parents, women more than men still today wind up having to shoulder those burdens. And when that happens, women then have to, they have to approach their work differently. They everything from the hours they can be in the office or be working, to even taking leave. And I've I've had the experience. I've actually, a few years ago, I interviewed someone who left the workforce for 4 years to raise her son. She was an embedded systems programmer. So she'd worked in the mobile telecommunications industry. She was brilliant. And she took 4 years off, and we hired her, and we were so excited to have her. But she told us after she was hired that so many companies would just not even talk to her, because they said, "Oh, you've been off for 4 years. You've totally lost all your skills. Your knowledge is not relevant, and we won't talk to you," which is crazy. But those are the kinds of biases that women still face. And I think the things we do in both of those places are different. Like certainly supporting STEM education and helping young women see the opportunities there, be excited, and be supported in that. And then in companies, whether it is through recruiting, whether it is through ERGs, how we create that support system for women so that they do find that it's comfortable and easy and welcoming for them to stay in those careers.
Oh, John, I would love to unpack everything that you just said because you gave such great insight. I once had an individual, which shall remain nameless, that said to me, Anna, what are you trying to accomplish? You're trying to get to what, like a 50-50 balance? What if women are just not cut out to be in tech? Of course, that was, after I lunged myself at the person. But no, all kidding aside, all I said is, well, no, all I'm trying to do is raise awareness, and let's try to establish a more equal playing field,
Hmm.
because of the some of the items and issues that you just mentioned that can kind of be a hindrance to women in the tech space. Also, the power of having a diverse group, not just gender diversity, but diversity in general. You're right. There's so many studies out there that prove the productivity and the efficiency of the team. I often equate it to, if you're preparing a meal, wouldn't you rather have, 15, 20 spices you can work with versus just
Hmm.
using salt all the time,
Right.
right? So
Right.
it's like that's going to give the flavor and the operational excellence that you're looking for. So, thanks for that insight. Let's talk a little bit about technological trends. What are you currently observing, and how are they impacting business and industries? There's a lot going on. You can't
Hmm.
help but look at trends almost on a daily basis as far as the changes in technology.
Yeah, it's definitely a very interesting time. I was talking to somebody else last week, and I said 2022 was the year of crypto and Web3. And 2023, everybody seems to have crossed out Web3 on their presentation decks and penciled in generative AI. And so now we're all talking about large language models and generative AI.